Welcome to our first gratitude talk. We are going to have a series of gratitude talks this month, getting ready for our big Thanksgiving holiday for those of us who celebrate Thanksgiving. And we're just heading into the gift giving season. And gift giving season means gift request season, right? For the kids, where we're going to be hearing all kinds of things about what kids want, what they're hoping for, what their holiday wishes are. And I have to tell you that in my years of experience working with children and families and communities, as a teacher, as a teacher trainer, as a parent coach, parent educator, I keep seeing this theme come up where parents are a bit confused and conflicted about how their children can behave, particularly around having more, yeah, or wanting something, and it can show up in so many different ways. Like, I would love to know who's here, by the way. If you're here live, just put your name in the comments, say hello to me, let me know where you're tuning in from, how old your kids are. Would just love to hear from you. So the thing that the trend that we're seeing, and let me know if you're seeing this too, let me know in the comments too, is that we've been seeing kids have less and less sort of awareness and understanding of how abundant their lives are. Now, I'm not making the assumption that everybody is able to pay every bill when it comes in the mail. What I mean is that our world is filled with objects and with items, with stuff. Yeah, I mean, we can go to like a big box store and get a $2 t-shirt. I mean, it's possible. And so, but the kids don't really necessarily in this time of like that's filled with stuff really have a sense of like what it takes to make a t-shirt, like the soil, the water, the the sunshine, the farmer, the harvesting, the processing, the machinery, the engineering that went into the machinery, the transportation that got it there, the general manager of the store and the sales representative and all the things, and then your money earning that brought the money into the family, all the efforts of that, bringing it together to bring this t-shirt home. They're really just oblivious. And what can happen and what's come of it, and what I've seen as a growing trend, unfortunately, in the last 2 decades, is that kids will be more careless. Let me know if you've seen that. They'll be more careless with things that are actually valuable. They have value, they're precious. And maybe they're replaceable, sure. It doesn't have to be irreplaceable to be valuable. It just means it's like it's a resource to be respected, whether it's their own personal items or something in the house. Maybe they're visiting someplace and they're not careful with somebody else's items. So there's a bit of like being a little careless and not really understanding that things have value in that way. Another thing I've noticed, a growing trend, is that kids are just like making all these demands, and it's not just for stuff. Not every kid is stuff focused, like wanting more stuff. Although I've seen demands for more Lego sets and big meltdowns when they don't get them, big meltdowns in stores, or when they're trying to like get onto your online shopping and they're so upset when you close the window or say no. So it can be around stuff, but it can also just be around like entitlement to having influence or being in charge, or sort of assuming that they get to have what they want all the time, and if they don't get it, then it's a big problem. Yeah. And so we as the adults have a big undertaking ahead of us in raising children in a time where there's so much stuff, there's a lot of consumerism, but also we have this special layer of being stuck at home and not having a lot of peer learning going on, seeing different kinds of households and different kinds of SES, like socioeconomic, status families, to understand that not every person has what they have, and nor do they continue to just get more of what they already have as a default. So what do we do about this? Well, I got concerned about 8 years ago and started to really like make some connections between this sort of entitled behavior that was coming up and for lack of a better word, just like absence of gratitude, which as I did my research, I realized was deeply due to a lack of awareness, like awareness that people have different amounts of stuff, lack of awareness of where stuff comes from, lack of awareness of like what it takes to actually produce something like a t-shirt, like I just walked us through. So I got really curious about what would happen if kids became more aware of where things come from. Now, the second thing I got really curious about is like, how can I improve? How can we possibly improve relationships through gratitude? Because oftentimes what really would irk parents and also the teachers is when they would go out of their way to make something happen for the kids, and the kids are like, oh, thanks, and just kind of like swiped it, picked it up and ate it. Let's say it was a special meal, or they just were like, or even were like acting out in class after a music teacher had spent hours and hours and hours preparing a lesson and like figuring out all of the all the parts of a composition so the kids could be successful, like redid the whole I'm in a story now. Yeah, so there's this music teacher who was who had remodeled the whole music setup so that the kids would be able to access the instruments at their level, had like redone it, spent the whole weekend, even some of his own money on it. And the kids kind of came in and just messed around and didn't even give him the basic like respect of their attention. And you can imagine it made his blood boil, and it was frustrating, and it was also saddening. It's like, you would think, you would hope that they would walk into the space and notice, right? First of all, just notice the goodness of like, wow, this is really beautiful. And these shelves are, you know, I can go pick up an instrument. This is so convenient to me, but they didn't. And it was really hard. And so I said, well, what's going on here with relationships and gratitude? I was super curious about that. And then as an educator at the time, of course, one of my outcomes is academic success. And I know that academic success rests on engagement and, you know, being involved and active in studies. So don't be surprised if you take some gratitude practices from today's training, put them into place in your family, in your household, and see kids do things like volunteer to do chores, or at least fight it less, become more interested and focused on their schoolwork, also just have a better mood in what this stressful, kind of lonely time, okay? So I want you to be listening carefully for the practices, but I want you to have in mind like the ripple effect forward, because that's what I found. That exact music teacher reported back after I did a gratitude intervention based on the practices I'm sharing with you now, in an elementary classroom, which was my master's research focus. And they noticed better affect, more engagement. They felt like the kids were just interacting better, like had more kindness and more consideration, and learned more. In my own classroom, I saw kids turn in homework on time more, with more completion, just be engaged in their work more, were kinder to each other in just sort of like anecdotal ways, and even chose to give compliments more than they wanted to get compliments when given the choice. That was really interesting, and so many other outcomes of the research. So needless to say, you know, what we did had an impact on the kids. So you can know that what I'm about to share with you, you know, has been tested out. So, and there can be barriers to gratitude and barriers to, you know, moving a relationship forward. There can be barriers to raising awareness. And there's a way that you can, you know, get some support with that if you'd like. I'll let you know at the end. At the very least, you could continue to, you know, attend these trainings and come to the Q&A. There's a Q&A question, ask me anything session that will be in the Raising Our Resilience parent group. And what you would do is you would show up for it and type in the comments what your questions are, or submit them ahead of time, and I'll address them in the video. And that's at the end of the month, November 30th. So save your questions for me or put them in the chat now, and we can get this conversation rolling. Like, what about my kid who always goes, ew, at the dinner table, even when I spend hours cooking a meal? What do I do then, right? So there's all these scenarios that might come to mind, and I want you to put them in the comments and or come to our Ask Me Anything session, November 30th, okay? Because what might happen is you might learn something today, go try it out, and run into some obstacles. You don't want to give up on it, right? You want to come back, get some support, and I can coach you through that obstacle. Yeah, okay. So elementary, different from preschool. I also did a preschool study. I'll be sharing that next week. So those of you who are here who have preschoolers, come back next week for that, okay? That's a Monday, I think it's the 22nd, 21st. Yeah, next Monday. All right, so, but for elementary, what we know is that their sense of like, social relationships is really sort of blossoming. They're starting to notice their friends. They're starting to kind of even make kind of like identifying kind of like group identity sort of perspective. So they might share things like, I'm one of the horse girls or something. And there's this group of girls that all love horses, and they'll start to say things like that. So this is a time where they're like, social awareness is really emerging, and it's a beautiful time to do what my most powerful strategy that I did in this training and in this study. I've shared it in China, in Bulgaria, and several different cities across the country, including hometowns here in Oakland and Berkeley, Emeryville, is to share stories of people doing things on their behalf. Okay, we call them gratitude stories, but gratitude stories, like, think of a time you were thankful and write a story about it. That's great, yes, but these stories are, they're really called benefactor stories. But when we think of grateful stories, it's like, what could spark gratitude in your child if you were to tell a story about it? So here's an example, and I want you to use this as a template, okay? Because it's very deliberate. There's some parts that are included. So we had a parent volunteer at the school that I was conducting the study at here in California. And it says here that she's hosting, and I would start like this. Did you know that, and we'll use Carrie. Did you know that Carrie is hosting a school-wide yard sale to raise money for the school? Yeah, she told me that for 4 weeks, she sorted, cleaned, priced, and posted ads for items for the sale. Then she met with buyers and helped set up a big sale in the community room. This project I did because I just want to show love for our environment and the earth as we remember to recycle, reuse, and exchange goods rather than tossing them into landfills. Did you know that Carrie did that? Yeah, isn't that amazing? She spent about 15 to 20 hours a week on this process, and she met new families and helped connect them all as a community. And I'd be like, wow, she really gave up a lot of time and maybe some energy, and she did a lot of work. When you hear this, and then I would ask, a child or students, and you can ask this of your child after you share a story, what do you think, why do you think Carrie did this? And this is driving at, could it be possible that Carrie had really good intentions, and that this is her like sharing her good intentions by, by doing something, an act of service to the community? So it's like, hey, Juicy, good to have you here. So possibly, what do you think was her intention here? And you could say, well, she really wanted to help the environment and help the school by raising money. It's like, yeah. So that's a good question. Another is like, well, how did you benefit from it? So they can like tune into like the gift that they received, right? So we have the intention of the giver and the gift they received. Well, we got to have that new playground equipment after the sale because they raised the money. She raised that money, and I got to come and see my friends on the weekend during the sale. And I even was able to get the stuffy for $2 when it's usually 10 at the store. So they can kind of tune into what they're receiving in this scenario. Yeah. So the gift you received, the intention of the giver. Another one is tuning into the cost of the giver. Okay, so you don't have to have all these parts, but I'm giving you the full, like, this is it, okay? This is like the core of my curriculum and my research. So the third thing that you're asking, that you're kind of getting them to tune into, is the cost. So it's like, wait, what did Carrie say she gave up or had to do in order to make this happen? I remember something about hours, and then could say, yeah, oh, it wasn't like 15 hours. Yeah, 15 hours. Wow, 15 hours of time. That's like the time in the summer from when the sun rises to when the sun sets. She spent all that time, and maybe even more, like into the dark hours, almost like an entire day, pretty much, getting this together, that much time. Wow. That was pretty nice, huh? What do you think? And then you can ask them, like, so with knowing all of this, what kind of person do you feel like Carrie is? And then they can share, and like, well, they're a nice person, a helpful person, a kind person, right? I've filled up a whole poster of words, by the way, with the students of like, ways of describing this person and what must be coming from their heart, right? Then you just ask a simple question, and this is what's interesting. And this is what I want you all to avoid doing the opposite of, okay? The opposite would be something like, so shouldn't you say thank you? Shouldn't we do something for her, right? I call it shoulding gratitude all over your kids. Please don't should all over your kids. Like, shouldn't you? You should, it's kind of like, You should be happy right now. Why aren't you happy? Gratitude is a state of being and a feeling, an affect even, and it's a little strange to say you should feel this way. Yeah, it's like, it's fine, nice opinion, but is it gonna really move the needle on gratitude? So what we found, what I found, is that by sharing the stories of good people in their life, doing good things that they get to benefit from, they start to connect the dots on their own. And they start to, like, while you tell the story, they have a natural inclination to feel grateful. How many of you have seen a child be spontaneously grateful before? Like, oh, thank you, and then they hug you, or they like draw a picture real quick for you and bring it to you with a little heart on it. I just received one of those from my roommate's daughter the other day. It was like, this is for you, and her nickname for me is Coach. She's just like, here, Coach, and then she put a rainbow on it. It's like her spontaneous act of kindness or love or gratitude, right? So the interesting thing you do next is say, so now that you know that she's a helpful, good, kind person who did this really great thing, that spent 15 to 20 hours on it, and you got to have all these things, like, what do you think we should do? And you can even ask, how does that make you feel inside? I feel pretty good. How about you? And they might say the words thankful or grateful or loving or kind, right? I've been with 9-year-old boys who are like, whatever, you're too cool for school, like breakdowns to like, wow, that was really nice. Like you could just see it soften, that little like cool veneer. They go, that was really nice, actually. It's like, yeah, what do you think you could do? Like, well, I could just be really nice next time I see them, or I could share a treat with them. When I bring cookies next time, I'll make sure to give one to her, that kind of thing. And they come up with great ideas of how to express their gratitude that are authentic for them. And it might even like match their love language. Like one person wants to spend time with them and because they're a quality time person, or maybe one wants to write a beautiful thank you note because words of affection are how they express their gratitude, right? You can let that part unfold authentically in elementary. In preschool, we actually get to teach them different ideas of how to share gratitude because they're still trying to figure it out, which we'll go over next time, okay? Next Monday. So just to give you a sense, like, I made one for a teacher who did Earth Day, face painting and did a bunch of things to prepare for that. I had, a volunteer who was on the board who was like helping make sure the school runs smoothly. And this is all the school version. So when you're at home, you can think of like, who do your children actually receive goodness from? And it doesn't have to be direct, but the more direct, the better. Something they can actually like tangibly understand is a great way into inspiring authentic gratitude. So it could be even you and a co-parent taking turns telling grateful stories about each other. I've got Juicy on the line. Juicy, I wonder if you and Carlos have had a chance, to tell a gratitude story about each other. Like, did you know that Daddy went to 3 grocery stores to find this gluten-free mac and cheese for you because they were out of it at the other 2 places? Gosh, he really didn't have to do that. I wonder what time that might have taken. Maybe we could ask him, hey, Daddy, how long did that take you? Honey, how long did that take you? And you can start the gratitude story from there. It could be something that simple where someone just goes a little out of their way to show, to make something good happen for the kids, okay? So tell gratitude stories. That is my top tip. If you do nothing else after this training with your elementary kids, but tell a handful of gratitude stories over the next week, you will have already taken a really big step. Because it also helps you, by the way, it's proven that people who tell stories of kindness end up wanting to be kind. And their whole nervous system, it's called the vagal nerve, their whole can be measured, and it's sort of this tone of like satisfaction and love and like good feelings. It actually gets activated when you tell a story of someone else being kind. You've probably seen the pay it forward commercials, where somebody's doing like, we'll do something like pay for someone's grocery bill and walk away. And then that person pays it forward. And it's like this ripple effect, right? Well, if nothing else, even if your kid's like, whatever, the first 2 or 3 times, or totally goes over their head, at least you get a boost in happiness and gratitude by telling the story. So there's no lose here. It's only win. Like you can only gain from doing it. Okay. So gratitude stories. Yeah. first one. And that, because it's a relationship builder, is like so important. And that's why I focus on parents and their relationships with their kids and with each other in my work now. That's like my main focus, is because of what I learned from this research. I was like, wow, it really comes down to the relationship, and that builds so much resilience. So are you ready for a couple more? Okay, so if you've been following with me and you're ready to do some grateful, tell a gratitude story, just put it in the comments, like, I'm ready to tell a gratitude story. And you can even write like a little sentence that'll help you remember, or like what one you might start with, like the person that you want to tell a story about. So it could be when mommy helped fix the broken chair or something. When grandma grandma sent a special care package and took the time to decorate it. When your friend, like a family friend, researched the best kind of app to learn math facts or something, right? Like, I don't know what's going on in your world, but I bet you could think of at least one kind act that someone did on behalf of your children, right? That will benefit them. It doesn't have to be big, right? Or you could be a big thing. Like, I know, Juicy, you had a really successful birthday party with one of your kids, right? Maybe you could think of 2 or 3 people, even that far back, who went out of their way to make it really special. And you could retell that story and kind of spark up that gratitude and kind of revive that relationship and that connection. So what happens? What happens is that when we tell these gratitude stories, not only do the kids have a boost of gratitude, not only do they get to express it authentically from a real lived experience, but they also start to build in their scheme of life, because they're still trying to figure it all out, right? They're kind of like mapping who's who. Like I said, I'm a horse girl, like they're trying to figure it out. They start to get this sense that there's all these lines connecting them, to people who care about them and truly are invested in their success. They want them to be happy and successful, healthy, maybe. Like, someone might have sent your child a child-sized mask or given you a tip on where to find one. And that it's just true. Like, they have a network, they have a community, they have support in their lives. And it might just be a handful of people that they know directly. And if you're finding yourself running out of gratitude stories, start to and this is my tip number 2, start to tell stories of where things come from. It's literally the, like, where did this come from game? Yeah. And you get to start with something as simple, like an everyday object. Where did this come from? Well, we know what it is, right? It's a pair of scissors. And it looks like it's made out of metal and plastic. And I see a name of a brand here, like a little word here. I wonder where this came from. And you play this game of where did this come from? And you sort of guess or research all the way back to the origins, where it's like the elements, right? So like ore in the earth and, oil in the earth that was created, the plastic was created out of. And then you notice how many people and how much like intention or thought or good work went into getting this objects right here so that we can use this really good thing. Like, these are the sharpest, best scissors I've had, in a really long time. And I love that they're the color purple. It's one of my favorite colors. How did I get to have this good thing? The reason we do this is because, again, with the lack of awareness, no wonder they take things for granted. They don't understand what it takes to manufacture metal objects. No idea, most of them, right? And even us, we can get way out of touch with that. I don't know if you've ever watched the movie WALL-E, but like over time, we just sort of get distanced from where things come from. And next thing you know, we're out of touch too. So again, this is a great practice for you as well. It can help you feel like maybe you're like, oh, I wish I had this, I wish I had that. And it's all about what you don't have. You take a moment to notice what you do have and really appreciate what it took for it to get here. It can really make a difference. Another exercise related to this is thinking about all the people who supported you along the way to get where you are now. And even if it's like, you don't like where you are right now is hard, there's probably still something you have, or some wisdom that you have that came from others supporting you along the way. Even if it was like, well, at least my parents like fed and clothed me so that I could survive childhood. It might even be that basic, but usually you can drill down to something that came before that brought you here. That's a little advanced, and you can play with that with the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. Because sometimes they're like, I'm really good at math now. And it's like, oh, how'd you get here? And they realize, wow, okay, so I have my good friend in class, like always sits with me and helps me when she's done. My teacher tries to make the lessons really fun and interesting. My mom sits with me and does flashcards with me. I learned how to count from my grandma when she used to babysit me. We had all those fun songs we would play, you know, saying, wow, it took a lot to get me here. Like, so you can feel proud and grateful at the same time, which means you don't have to feel guilty to feel grateful. Please. And sometimes it works and it's fine. You know, like, you know, there are people who don't have what you have out there. So you should really be more grateful. Again, shooting gratitude all over your kids. It'll slip out. It's what we've heard, you know, like, you know, there are kids in that place who don't have food, so you should finish your food. We can't help it. We want to make comparisons, and comparisons can be helpful, but when there's when there's guilt or shame, it usually doesn't create a true positive sense of gratitude. It's actually a little bit more of like, oh man, kind of anxiety based, because it's like, if I'm not grateful for this, or if I don't say the right thing right now, maybe I'll end up like those people without the food, you know? So it's just sort of fear-based. What you could do instead is help them tune into the goodness, like, wow, like I get to be proud and happy and like grateful I have this thing, and not and also kind of humble in the sense of like, and I really know where it comes from. It's not just like I get the cool toy. Yeah, you know, it's like, wow. And my mom had to go to, you know, I had to search for 3 hours to find this because she knew it would make me so happy and fill up my heart light, you know. So knowing where things, like playing the where did this come from game. Okay. So we've got gratitude stories, right? That in the chat, in the chat, if you're listening, I would really love to know that you're following along with this, because it helps me know that you get what you're absorbing. You know? So tell gratitude stories. Number one. Okay. Number two, play the where did this come from game. Where did this come from? Okay. And number three is my COVID special. Are you ready for it? We are stuck at home around the same stuff, the same people, the same darn rooms, the same walls, the same 2 steps out the door, the same tree across the street, the same, you know, whatever, like a squirrel that comes through the yard. And it's just hard to keep like perspective that maybe some of those things are good, because we are conditioned quite a bit to associate new with good. Like if it's new, it's bright and shiny and it must be great because it isn't used up yet. You're not bored of it yet. And you haven't adapted to having it in your environment yet. So the fancy word for this is hedonic adaptation. It's when you get something new and it gives you a boost of happiness or gratitude or satisfaction, and then it fades. Yeah. So to prevent the fade effect of hedonic adaptation, which by the way, could be as short as an hour. I don't know if any of you have ever done that. You like go get a new thing at the store and you're excited, you bring it home, and then an hour later it's already faded. So it just doesn't stick. You know, even they say winning the lottery has an expiration time as well, like 1 to 2 years, I think, 1 year maybe. Getting married, 2 years. Having a new car, 6 months. Like on average, the boost in sense of satisfaction, happiness fades, unless you refresh your gratitude for that thing. Okay, so here's another great tip that people have loved all across the world, all across the country, is just find a new way to appreciate things that, like old things. And actually Rachel Amaro, who was here, and you can find her interview in the Parent Raising Our Resilience group. You know, if you go join my group right now, if you're not in it yet, she talks about the mindfulness of just like noticing something around you with your senses that you don't usually tune into. Because we are adaptive and we don't want to waste time and energy paying attention to things that we're used to. We want to keep that energy ready for the new thing that's coming our way, whether it's a predator, like, you know, from our old wiring, a predator, or maybe a rainstorm or something, or the shift in the cloud pattern. Like if there's something new, then our brain pays attention again. What that can lead to, though, especially when we have a very like kind of insulated situation, like sheltering in place, a lot of us are now having to, you know, even stay at home completely. Like there are shutdowns in cities like Chicago right now, right? Try to find something new in your environment to either use a new way, to look at a new way, or to just like notice. So, you know, like being able to pick up an everyday item. Like I have this lamp that's here that I always have next to me as part of my lighting, and has these really cool cutouts Well, I honestly haven't even noticed that it has cutouts in probably 6 months. Like I just haven't really noticed it, even though when I found it, and I was like, wow, this is really beautiful. It's so cool. So even just right now, I can model what this is like. I can look at it and go, oh, I actually wonder how did they even cut those? Maybe with a laser? And this pattern is so intricate. What do I see in it? Looks like flowers and maybe some symbols, like some runes or something. And then so that's with my eyes. So it's called using all of your senses to savor and the part that I add into it to make new again. Yeah, to see it in a new good way. And we call it see the good, find the good, see the good, savor the good. We'll get into it in the preschool as well, like how to do it with little kids. But older kids, you can actually have them like go pick something in the room and spend time like really like using your senses. So you look at it and then you could possibly touch it if it's something that could be touched. And I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of like fun on your fingertips. It feels really interesting, kind of tickly. You can do something in your environment right now. I can't tell you the number of times that I have wanted kids to treat a material better in my classroom, whether it was the pencils, the pencil sharpener, the desks, the chairs, whatever. Sometimes all I'd have to do is put it in the middle of circle time and just look at it and find something amazing about it that I appreciated. Like, look at how the curve of this back is pretty much exactly what our backs need on this chair. Wow. What else do you notice, kids? And they're like, ready. They're like, the metal is so shiny, or like they'll come up with things. It's great. They'll find it too. They'll find the good, the interesting, the like novel again, right? So use the sense of sight, touch, maybe how something sounds when you put it close to your ear. If it's appropriate to food, maybe they've been just like whatever, popping it in their mouth. Maybe they could take a moment and chew slowly and really taste it. Try to see what salty and sweet and bitter flavors they can pull out of it, how the texture changes as they chew it over time. They could and they could kind of crumple it by their ear and hear the sound of like popcorn popping, kind of cracking in half. And whatever other senses are in play, smell, and others, feel. And the idea is to just get kids sort of to like wake up again to what's good around them. And you can be really strategic, like I was in the classroom, and pick things that they are neglecting, right? Like they're just really not doing a good job, cleaning the floor. Well, guess what? We're all going to get down on the floor tonight and like take a really good look at this wood on the floor, like what the floor is made of, or the tile or whatever, or the linoleum, and be like, try to like really see it and like appreciate it and feel it, and maybe like get out the equipment that used to clean it and really appreciate it and see it and wonder where it came from, and see it in a new way. Like you can also say like what it looks like, or what it reminds you of, just to kind of give it some personality. And then you can roll into the conversation. I'm like, okay, so how are we going to take care of our floors, kids? What are we going to do? We want to, like, wouldn't it be nice to be able to walk across the floor and not end up with wet socks and a dirty stain on your sock, right? What would that be like? Yeah. So you can roll into other conversations from this grateful place. It's a beautiful starting point. So I hope that you've been able to take something from this training that you can apply right away with your kids. Be generous with sharing this with others. Okay, we're gonna get to why there's a picture of a toilet on my wall next week with the preschool piece. I have a couple special ones that I want to make sure you have that are great for early childhood based on my study and curriculum that I've created with Giacomo Bono, Cal State professor, that we're publishing a study and a curriculum out of what we learned. And so come on back for next Monday for that at 2 o'clock. And then we have a Ask Me Anything Q&A on the 30th, also at 2 o'clock in the Raising a Resilience parent group. If you haven't joined the group yet, go ahead and head over and join. It's a really great group. We've got, several folks who are sharing ideas, and especially, you can basically bookmark it so that you get invited to future events like this. I tend to be here Mondays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard almost every week of the year, so you can come back for more tips. I also have some bigger events that I run throughout the year, like 6-day trainings and 3-day trainings. We've got a virtual retreat coming up in January, all about emotional mastery, that I'm really excited to invite folks to. We've got And I also have a year-long academy for parents called an immersion, Family Foundations Immersion. And if it seems like, you're like, great, Vanessa, you've got tips, no problem, but it just doesn't seem like, not my kid. My kid's not going to get on board with this. There's too much going on here. It's too complicated. Get in touch with me. Don't just sit with that like hopeless feeling or like that sense of overwhelm or confusion or maybe even frustration. You don't need to navigate that on your own. I'm actually really, it's like my zone. It's me and my zone is to help parents kind of parse out like what would work, like what could help my kid listen better, what could help me know what to do, and stay calm when my kid melts down. What would actually help my kid act less entitled? Because I don't know that this is going to work. Or how could I make these tools work for my kid? If that's you, I want to know, and I want you to do something for me. Take this quiz that I've created to help parents get clarity. And it's so that you can get a sense of of these foundational pieces, like what might be going sideways, like what could be happening that is making it challenging to have breakthroughs and get to a better place with your kids. What is it? This quiz is designed to help you identify what is going on. So go ahead and fill out the quiz, and if you think it would be nice to have some one-on-one time with me, I have a handful of free sessions still available this month that you can apply for it at the end of the quiz. Okay. All right. And so those of you stayed, one last hot tip. If you want to go get a sweet book that is good for all ages, this one called A Good Day, A Gift of Gratitude. It's by Brother David Steindl-Rast. You can have this as a read along. It has beautiful pictures by, his name is Louis Schwartzberg. Or you can go Google, look up on YouTube, A Good Day, I think it's called Gratitude HD. It's a video I've shown kids from ages 5 and up. And sometimes kids who also are on, are watching shows and stuff can watch it when they're younger. But especially for elementary, this is a really great way to get your kid in the mood to look at things in a new way and see them with fresh eyes. A Good Day, okay? Or Gratitude HD on YouTube. And I'll throw the link in the post so it'll be easy for you to find too. All right, well, go gratefully, find a way to savor a moment, see something new, tell a gratitude story that will also lift your spirits right now. We can all use that. And play the where did this come from game, because it'll help everybody realize like how lucky we are in this time and age where we have access to things like we never have before, where we have so much assistance in our world. And also, bringing to mind like, oh, how could I help others? And that's the piece of service, by the way, for 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. Excellent way to inspire authentic gratitude is to put them in a position where they're helping others. So looking into your community, reaching out to your local community centers, shelters, and other organizations, food banks, and just ask like, what could be done right now, even from afar? They could be doing letter writing campaigns and things like that. With imagine like somebody who's not, down on their luck getting a handwritten Thanksgiving note or other holiday note from a child right now, and how much that might fill up their hearts. So yeah, get out there, spread the good word about gratitude, and we'll see you back here next week for part 2 for preschoolers. All right, lots of love to everybody. Bye for now.